Welcome to my coding school. So in this video, we are going to start by looking at the properties that can be applied at flex items. So here, before you get to that, I'll give you a simple tip. So whenever I am working with modules, I normally make up some notes on this whiteboard, for example, and oftentimes you can tend to forget the properties, especially if you are starting up. So what I usually do is I make these notes and then I make an overview or a mental map, for example, at the end here. For example, let's say that I'm designing a website. I'll start by maybe making a simple layout here, and then inside here, I'll add in a container. Let's say that this is a nav bar. This is a nav bar here. This is a nav bar. So I know that this one is a container, and then this one is also a container, but this one has items. So I know that I have 10 properties on the flex container, and each of those properties have several values, but some of them are simply a shorthand of others. And then I know that for the flex items, there are simply 6 properties. So I always try to just remember a few things to give me where to start from. So if you tend to forget this, all you have to do is to check the documentation, or I would recommend that you make your own simple notes, and this will give you a place where to start, because normally your workflow will be the same, and the same properties that you use at a certain feature in a web page, for example, will be applicable to another one. In that sense, you will not be repeating things too often. So now to start with, we have the order property. So by default, items are laid out in the source order. The order property controls the order in which they appear in the flex container. So what that means is this. So if I go into the code and then I come to the HTML, and then here I have, you see, item 1 through item 6. So by this is the source order. So this is how they will be laid in the container. So if I am to check the browser, you'll see that we have item 1 through item 6. But then with the order property, I can change the order of an item. For example, on this first item, I'll change the order to 1. And then if I save, you'll see now that this item 1 will come last. This is because by default all items have an order of 0, meaning that all these items 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 will have an order of 0, and then this one have an order of 1. And then if I set item 2 to order 2, for example, then save, you'll see now that we have order starting from item 3 to item 6, and then order 1, and then order 2. So the arrangement simply changes in the flex container. So if I have items with the same order, and then I will save, and then we'll see that item 1 and item 2 I will simply follow the order here, and you will see that it's item 1 that comes first, and then item 2, and this is exactly what will happen here. Order 1, 0, item 3 to item 6, then item 1, then item 2 with the same order. So that's how you work with the order property. And then the flex grow, this defines the ability for a flex container to grow if necessary. So the value has no units and it's from proportion. For example, if I get, I'll get this order of, and then this one, and then I'll apply a flex grow to item 1, flex grow like this, and then I'll put it to 10 pixels. Let's take a look at this, not pixels. I'll change it simply to, and remember flex grow, the value here is proportional. So if I save, so what this does is it will give this their default sizes, and then for item 1 it will be the remaining space will be distributed to this, And then if I set this to 1, and then let's put this one to flex grow. Okay, I'll set it to 3. So meaning that if item 1 is 1, then item 2 is going to be 3 times this, and then for the rest of the space will be distributed among these evenly. So that's how we use the grow. So the default value is 0. So that's why we see white spaces in the container. So if I remove this, and then I also remove this, you'll see that in the browser we have a white space here, meaning that the whole of this space is simply empty. So normally when you're designing, you wouldn't want this space to appear. So you would often design it away. So we can't use negative values in the flex grow. So this is by default. Now we are here on this property called the flex shrink. This defines the ability for a flex item to shrink if necessary. So this by default is set 1 for all of flex items, meaning that they shrink to a point and then they will overflow. So here I'll come to the code, and then what I'll do here is I'll duplicate a few items here, and then save, go to the browser, then we have those, and then if I resize the window and then resize it a little bit more, you'll see that these items are shrinking, but after a certain point they will start to overflow, meaning that the browser window will cover them. So by default this value is set to 1. So this defines the ability for flex item to shrink if necessary. Now I can set this. I'll use this first one, and then instead I'll use a flex shrink, and then here I'll set it to 2, save, and then you will see that item 2 will be shrinking a little bit more than other items. As you can see, item 2 in green is shrinking more than the other items. So that's how you use the shrink property. And then the other one is called a flex basis. So this defines the default size of one element before the remaining space is distributed. So it has a default value called auto, meaning that it will look at the width or the height property and set that value. So here I'll simply get rid of these other extra items. Save, then come here to the item 1, and then I'll add flex basis, and then by default it will be auto. Then if I save, I wouldn't notice much, and then here I'll set this one to 400 pixels. So and then you'll see they will stretch by default at that. So if I had, for example, here let's say here 40 pixels, save. So this is what this item will have by default. And then the flex, this is the shorthand for the flex grow, flex shrink, and then flex basis. So what I'll do here is instead of flex basis, I'll simply add flex, and then the default values we have 0 for flex grow, and then this for the shrink, and then actually they are separated by space. For shrink will be 1, and then auto for this, and then this is how it will be in the browser. So now if we move on to the last one, it's called align self. This allows the default alignment or the one specified by the align items so to be overridden for individual. So what this simply means is that this property is used to set the alignment of individual items. So the possible values are the ones that we know flex start, flex end, baseline, center, stretch, and but this works on the cross axis, so it's the same as the value set on the line items, the flex container. So let's take a look at that. So here I'll get a line of, and then if I choose center to start with, you'll see now that only this item is placed at the center. And then if I do a flex start, it will be at the top, and then flex end, it will be at the end. That's it for the flex box. So again, my tip is, whenever you are trying to struggle to remember things, all you have to do is simply look into your notes or the documentation, and then figure out what you want to do, and then find the properties that apply to that by using the simple mental model that I mentioned at the start of the video. So I'll see you in the very next series.